How are you this morning?
I am jolly, and you guys?
We're doing very great, and oh, may I also say,
Will's a whole year older.
I am that I am, and thank you, Jeff, for this lovely mug
You're
you've
welcome.
given me for my birthday, and thank you everyone for all your birthday wishes. I do appreciate
Happy
that.
birthday, young man.
Suitable for beverages such as hot chocolate or coffee or even soup.
It'll be added to my wife's mug collection. I'm serious. She does have a mug collection, but thank you, and thank you, Tina, for the birthday wishes.
Yes.
How are things in the business world?
We are going to have a discussion on a medley of 3 issues, all of which have some legal angle to them. First and foremost, let's talk about the hopefulness that perhaps the Nanuet's Regal Cinema will, in fact, be able to, or Cineworld, which owns the Regal Cinema, will be able to negotiate with Simon Property Group that owns the shops at Nanuet. We may recall that we had reported a couple of weeks ago that Cineworld had asked a bankruptcy court judge in Texas for permission to reject 20 existing leases, and one of those included the Regal and the Nanuet shopping mall. And this created a wave of concern in the county. We only have one other cinema left in the Palisades Mall as it is. That's very few cinemas, so to be left with only one would be pretty bad news. The one in New City recently closed down, so I think people were really concerned about this. Now, we can't know what corporations and corporate lawyers had in mind when they went to the bankruptcy court judge and asked for these properties to allow themselves to get out of their leases with impunity, whether they were using this as a tactic for negotiating a new lease, or whether this was really what they saw fit for their restructuring. But what we do know right now, we can only follow the news, is that they've taken a reversal. They've taken 15 of the 20 cinemas off the list. Like I said, the Nanuet was one of those. And certainly as we head into the Christmas season, people will be happy to go to the movies. People, I think, are getting back to the movies, even if it's slow going and since the pandemic. But for now, there's a reprieve. It's not a conclusion to the story, but I suppose that for Simon Property Group, it's not in their interest to have a big black hole in that shopping center. One of the things that this judge's order would have allowed was for them to walk away with all of the whole cinema intact, and it would become Simon's burden to find another operator, which seems, kind of unlikely for a movie theater, and or to have to demolish it and do something else with the building. So, these are big corporations that are like the gladiators that are fighting it out in the way that they do. But for us here, who live in the county and are watching the vitality and health of the of Nanuet and the shops, for now, there's at least a reprieve, and it looks like we know that there are negotiations going on.
I got to say, if I may, about that topic for real quick, I did want to also point out that it would be the last remaining multiplex in the county. There's still Lafayette Theater in Suffern is still open, in addition to the Palisades Center movies.
Yes,
But I also wanted to point out, I went to the Nanuet movie theater last week to see Wakanda Forever. And I have to say, this was before the news came out, before you reported about them being in negotiations to continue. They had in their previews a commercial spot begging people to come buy a membership of their Perks Rewards program is, whatever that's called. And I was thinking to myself, wait a minute. Aren't you guys going out of business? Why are you trying to solicit people to become members of a Perks program that will no longer exist?
Right. Well, I think that, like I said, these are corporate decisions, and they can, perhaps they have a heads up on what they're planning to do. We have no way.
Or they're negligent and forgot to pull the spot, or they're just trying to take money from people who don't know any better.
Wow.
Right?
Yes.
Dun, dun,
Yes,
dun.
yes,
Well, that's
yes.
that's the thought that went through my mind. I'm like, the majority of the people in here might not even know that. They're like, hey, honey, I should go and join that rewards program. We can see 10 movies a month or whatever it is. Like, oh, you can't go there if it's closed, you idiot. What are you buying into their program for?
Well,
But I digress.
yes, yes. Well, I think for now there's a glimmer of hope on that front. Now, what seems to be more conclusive, despite what you heard earlier on the radio this morning, is I based on the reporting that we have done and sort of the facts at hand, it does seem that the issue of term limits in Clarkstown is over. This so-called that the law is unconstitutional is sort of out there. The argument is that the law as written is actually not about term limits, but that it's about the length of the term. Let's step aside. I mean, the town of Clarkstown passed a law. The language of that law is plain. The legislative history is clear. The arguments made when it was passed, and there are many references to term limits. So, not really on solid legal ground. It seems. What we do know from our reporting is this. Of course, the supervisor who's terming out would like to run again. However, what we know is that he needed 4 votes to do that. It's called a supermajority, language that he insisted on when the legislation was crafted in the first place back in 2014. He did not have those 4 votes. At best, he had 3. He had Donald Franchino and he had Graziano at best. So he did not have the supermajority to repeal the law. There was going to be some attempt to amend the law, again with some kind of argument that the language wasn't suitable. However, what I understand from my reporting is that there was a big last push effort to get this removed from the agenda because of the implications. One is that it would have ended up in court, and again, another lawsuit that the people of Clarkstown would have had to support. And 2, there was a lot of pushback at this point because there just wasn't really the support for this, even though it is true that there will be a shift in leadership in Clarkstown. Now, we are built on a country that is about shifting leadership and shifting people out of office. I mean, I think it was Alexander Hamilton who had proposed that we have presidents for a lifetime. I think we decided otherwise more than 200 years ago. And just, one more comment on this is that the supervisor, George Homan, raised the issue that Clarkstown is the only town that has this. Well, Clarkstown is the only town that also has ward districts. Wards, voting wards. No other town in the county has that. I don't see an argument being made to eradicate the wards, either. So the fact that that Howard Phillips has served for 18 years, or that other towns don't have term limits, not quite sure how really that is. Certainly not an argument that has any standing with regard to getting this back on the agenda. I don't like to be a prognosticator, and I don't have a crystal ball. However, I would say, based on our reporting, I think I don't expect to see this issue resurface. We do know that Frank Borelli is vehemently against these term limits, and it seems to be that but for being able to persuade him, the supervisor does not have a clear path to change the course of this. And also, from what I've been told by sources, he's already looking for work in the private sector. So, we're looking at a lame duck situation for 2023, in the sense that, because this is, experimental, because it's the first experiment with term limits in the county. But yeah, I mean, there's going to be some amount of change. I think the American democracy is largely built on that, so not quite sure why that's an issue. Finally, unless you want to weigh in, anything, comments, thoughts?
No, real quick, we're running out of time. So what's your third point that you wanted to make?
So the third point is I just wanted to talk a little bit about the Ateres case against Clarkstown and against Homan and against Coupon, Citizens United to Protect Our Neighborhoods. We reported on this. I know that you raised the issue. Based on reading the suit, it does not seem that this is necessarily a frivolous case, because the reason that the court dropped the case was not because it had declared the case to be frivolous ever, but they never actually heard the merits of the case. They dismissed it on something called standing, saying that the Ateres Academy, the people who wanted to put in the Yeshiva Girls' School, lacked standing because the town zoning board had never made a final decision on their application, and that the church had canceled the contract, the Grace Baptist Church had canceled the contract while the ZBA case was pending. The real point of the Ateres suit was that town officials and activists had basically worked together to frustrate the contract, and that town officials and activists had interfered with the financing, and that the town had worked to deny a building permit and to put unreasonable obstacles in their way to get a ruling from the ZBA in the first place, or to even determine whether or not a permit was actually ever needed. So I don't know. This case is back in court. It's another legal burden. And in the meantime, all these years later, after a 4.2 million, doing that one from memory, purchase of the site, which Clarkstown has done, the building is falling down, and we still don't see, there's no plan that has come before the Technical Advisory Committee or any other committee right now to do something, useful with that piece of land. So watching all these three stories, because I guess at least two of them are definitely still in progress, and we shall see. We will keep an eye on all of them.
Indeed, we will. Tina, thank you so much for joining us as always. If you need to know more about rcbizjournal.com, just go to their website, of course, rcbizjournal.com. Tina, thank you so much. We'll talk to you again on Monday.
Okay, have a great week.
Thanks, you too.